Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be reacting to this video titled The Purpose of the Word Racist, so let's get into it.
This video posted by LBC today is a great example of how the word racist is going to be used to take everything away from you. Everything that you think is normal in the world, you will have stripped from you by some insufferable shitlib who's like, no, that's racist, that's racist, that's racist. You can't have anything because everything is racist. And this really gets to the underlying issue with what they think the word racist actually means. Because a normal person hears the word racist and thinks, oh, that person nurtures...
Right off the bat, I do think the word racist is a very overused word in today's society. Today's world.
The prejudice and hatred against people because of the colour of their skin or the fact they're a different tribal group or ethnic group from them, and therefore that person has some sort of moral deficiency within themselves. But Matthew right here shows us that no, this is actually nothing to do with your own moral deficiency. This is now to do with you feeling like you are a part of the world. This is you not considering yourself to be an independent, free-floating, atomic agent that lives above the rest of humanity, or something like that. Someone who has been taken out of time, out of place, and instead exists within a time and within a place, as in the word racist to Matthew Wright, whether he realises it or not, and I don't think that he does realise it, because I don't think he is our best and brightest, means considering yourself to belong to something. In Matthew's case, belong to the English people. That's how Matthew is using the term racist. And when we have drilled down this far in the term racist, we can see that the point of it was literally just to break the bonds between people who exist in society. The purpose of the word racist,
I do think that's true,
is to make the native British or English population feel as if they are not allowed to stake their own claim.
I think the word racist now, it has kind of been turned on certain people, especially white people. Not in the sense of making life equal for everyone, but basically giving other races special privileges and rights that other people don't have. Just because if that's not the case, it's racist apparently.
To their ancestral lands, because of course the term racist, when used in this way, is not being levelled against any other group of people other than the English population. Of course there are lots of other populations who are now here who are allowed to be racist, as in to...
I do want to say that white people are held to much higher standards than really any other race.
Belong to a race, as far as Matthew is concerned, but the English are not allowed. They are the ones to whom this is being used, and they are the ones to whom this is being levelled as some kind of moral fault. You are morally deficient if you feel you belong to a people and you are English. This is not a standard that applies to anyone else. So let's watch Matthew explain this to some old chap who rang in to say, look, I just don't like what's happening to my country.
Anybody, Indian, Pakistan, you meet them, go to South Africa, they're nice. Most people are nice, first of all. That's what you've got to remember. In the world.
In the world, most people are nice.
They are nice. You meet them. If you're coming as a, you go to Bradford and you don't know anybody there, you go there and flipping out, what's going on here? I get the feeling, because I'm quite old, it's not a racist feeling, it's a tribal feeling where you're feeling slightly out of place.
Right. That's perfectly reasonable. And that's completely reasonable to look at what has happened, the colonisation of England, and say, why is this being allowed to happen? It's actually not normal to allow millions of people from around the world to just start moving in and taking over your country. That's actually really unusual and not really very...
As of probably the last 100 years, that's probably at least slowly been the case, slowly becoming the case, but like in today's time that is has sped up dramatically basically. Probably prior to 100 years ago, this probably at least mostly wasn't a thing.
Desirable, because then you find yourself going to a place and say, right, okay, I don't actually belong here. This has been colonized by another culture. They've set up their own. The things that make their culture visibly different to ours, so places of worship, different kinds of shops, the way that they just associate with one another in the street, the way that the streets are populated by people who are of foreign descent, this is weird, and I feel like an alien in my own land. Why would I want this? Why is this desirable? I don't really think that this is what we should be doing. This doesn't express a deep hatred for anyone else. What this expresses is a desire for a kind of understanding and a normalcy of one's own, a love of one's own, you could say. And Matthew Wright is like, right, okay, this tribal feeling that everyone apart from the liberal has, this is somehow evil, and in fact uniquely evil to the English. It's not evil to the Indians or Pakistanis.
This is what I meant by white people are held to much higher standards than anyone else.
Like Matthew Wright's got no criticism for them at all. He has it for the English.
Isn't tribal? I mean, tribal in that sense. I mean, that is a kind of racist feeling, isn't it? It's a racist feeling that we rebrand.
Humans have felt tribalistic emotions and feelings ever since really the human race began.
That's a tribal feeling, we're saying.
So I guess that if tribalism is racist, then at least most people since humans started existing have been racist, which I disagree with.
There we go.
I do think that race is... I guess that some people can have some inbuilt biases right from the start, but I do think environment does play a factor.
He's literally saying, to feel like you belong to a tribe is a form of racism, and you, as an Englishman...
I prefer the word collectivism.
...are guilty of it. Them, as Indians or Pakistanis, are not guilty of it, and I will level no criticism against them. Like, if wanting to feel as part of the wider group to which we actually belong, whether we like it or not, I mean, like, genetically, like, we belong to these groups. If wanting to feel like we belong to the groups with which we actually belong is a form of racism, then we've arrived at the logical endpoint of racism, which is to simply break apart our sentimental bonds between one another. We are not allowed to feel as if we are bound together through a shared heritage, a shared common community, common culture, common language, common history, common ethnicity. We're not allowed any of those things because those things themselves are what constitute racism in the ridiculous worldview of the atomic liberal, who believes that individuals are completely separate, self-formed, created out of nothing, and exist with no bonds between one man to another. Preposterous, but also you can see how this is just purely destructive. He is not using this to construct anything. He's using this to take something away from you, to dispossess you of something you inherited from the past. Let's continue, Matt.
I don't like them because they're a different race.
See, notice how he's automatically flipped to, you don't like them. You are a hateful person. You're a person who's prejudged all of these people because...
I do find it funny that other people actually tend to hate us a lot more than we hate them.
For some reason...
But then we're the racist ones for at least wanting some... level playing field at the very least, or some sort of standard.
In your heart lies hatred, and that's just not the case. That's not what this guy is saying, and that's not what anyone really is saying. Like he began this with, again, why Matthew Wright says, you know, I did hear you say most people in the world are good people, but for some reason I've decided to say you just hate them, actually. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, there is a thing called England that was passed to us by our ancestors, and allowing this to be taken away from us is actually not a good thing. And again, normal people, anyone else around the world would go, well, duh. But we live in the ideologically racked ruins of what liberalism has wrought, and now the last liberals standing are going to make sure that you aren't even allowed to think maybe it'd be nice to live around other English people, because that itself shows hatred as far as they're concerned.
I don't really like the word, because naturally people stay with people. The Irish in Cricklewood, people sit with people.
This is true. I do feel like a lot of immigrant communities, when they go abroad to live somewhere else permanently, they try to find a community which is, at least has a higher diaspora of their original population than somewhere completely random, so to speak. I can't think of any examples right now, though, but like, I have seen examples.
Like themselves.
But they don't. You see, I know the Irish community in Cricklewood, and while there's lots of Irish people in Cricklewood, there's lots of other people there, and they all get along. Yeah.
But they do. That's why there are lots of Irish people in Cricklewood. The fact that you admit that they are there.
Yeah, this is true. The reason why probably a lot of people get along is because a lot of people come from the same place, think the same things, etc.
Shows that Irish people went to where there were other Irish people. It's not a coincidence. There is a large Muslim community in Bradford or Rochdale, wherever. Right? These things aren't coincidences. It's not like there's a sieve with water flowing through it. Right? People are choosing to live in these areas because there are other people like themselves. Because other people like themselves are familiar. They make the world more predictable. They can kind of read the minds of the people around them and say, right, okay, I know what this guy's doing. I know what that guy's doing. I feel as if I have a connection to the people around me when they are more like me. It's really not crazy. And you've just admitted the guy's right, so the fact that you've got to instinctively deny, oh no, of course these things aren't true. Even though there is a large Irish community in Cricklewood, what a coincidence. They just happened to get dropped out of the sky there. No, they chose to go there. God, I'm so sick of the dishonesty of liberals.
It's predominantly Irish, but to say that they're one community, they're not, they're integrated.
Of course they are. If you live in central London, you have all sorts of people, friends, and it's the way it is. But there is definitely an issue with people in this country who have been here for illegally, working illegally, and probably shouldn't be here.
But there's not an issue. But there's not an issue with the ruling elite demonising these people.
No, the ruling elite is doing everything they can to stop us from being upset that our country is being taken away from us, Matthew. You are part of the ruling elite, you prat. Honestly, the idea that the elites in this country...
I do think that a lot of the ruling elite, at least largely indifferent compared to everyone else, basically, because it's actually normal people who are suffering the worst of this, whilst rich people, they either completely don't know or they don't care, and I'm more inclined to believe the latter, and that's the reason, because they all live in gated communities with people of the same race, or at least people who are so well off that, of course, they don't want to lose their livelihood, and they all think in a successful way, and that's why they think that multiculturalism isn't all that bad, but that's because they don't see the worst of it, because they don't live in the areas where bad things happen.
Are like, hey guys, we need to demonise immigrants. It's like, no, that's the complete opposite of what is done. The laws prevent us from doing it, Matthew. When the Southport riots happened, you cracked down as hard as they could on people who look like they might be demonising immigrants. Like, the idea that you think, as one of the elite, you can sit there and go, yeah, but isn't the problem the ruling elite guys? Well, I mean, yeah, in a roundabout way, yes, the problem is the ruling elite. The problem is the ruling elite using the word racist to try and take our countries away from us and hand them to other people. And again, at no point would you ever dare level that kind of criticism against the minority community? But you would never be like, hey guys, why have you all arrived in Bradford or whatever? No, you need to go all around the country because we don't want you being racist by congregating with people of like ethnicity, right? That Matthew Wright has declared to be racist. You are not allowed to do that. Will Matthew Wright ever say something like that? No, of course not. It's just for the English people who are having this inflicted upon them. They're the only people who have to endure what is happening. Everyone else gets to live exactly as you. Even the Irish get to congregate in their own communities. And that's fine for Matthew. Because apparently they've integrated. So what does that mean? They're living in an Irish community.
I do want to say that immigrants are different to others. There are immigrants which perform much higher than compared to immigrants of other backgrounds and races. I think that's basically statistically proven, and I think we treat immigrants as all the same people, and it's like a kind of blank slateism where people are treated exactly the same and thought of the same right off the bat, and we're not allowed to predict anything which may happen based off of their characteristics.
What does integration mean? If they're living in a Pakistani community or an Indian community, what does integration mean in those circumstances? And it means setting up their own little colonies, and that's fine, apparently. And it's like, man, this ship has sailed, mate, right? This ship has sailed. This rearguard action you are trying to do is clearly not persuading anyone. I'm certainly not persuaded. It doesn't look like your caller is persuaded. And I doubt that very many people listening were persuaded if they weren't already on the same boat.
And I think that's basically the end of the video. Let me see if there's anything else said.
Man, the multicultural experiment has just been an exercise in depriving us of things that are right.
Yeah, I would basically agree with him there. So that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.